Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. So let's have a candid discussion. Where do we go from here? More importantly, where does the antiques and collectibles trade go from here? Because I'm getting this question a lot. Sean, don't you think every advancement made in the antiques and collectibles trade has already been discovered, and this is how it's going to be going forward with no other advancements? Nothing's going to change. It's just going to always be like this. Whether we look into the future 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 1,000 years. And in all honesty, I can tell you that's 100% false. There are more advancements that are going to electrify some of these markets and are going to change a lot of these markets for better, for worse. Now, when some of these advancements come into play, if they affect a certain collecting category, we call that a catalyst. Meaning, if we look at third-party grading, third-party grading came on the scene in the 1980s, and it affected the rare coin marketplace first. It then quickly spread to other collecting categories like comic books, sports cards. Today, it affects everything from toys to currency to video games. Even record albums are being third-party graded and encapsulated. So that is just one example of a catalyst that can come into these markets and change a vast amount of collecting categories going forward, better or worse, depending on how you look at it. Obviously, third-party grading really brought in a lot of money into a lot of these collecting markets, to the point where we have massive prices being paid for certain collectibles like coins, comic books at present time that are third-party graded. Now, this is something that a lot of people don't really think about. But when we look at the antiques and collectibles trade, from the perspective of all of these advancements that we take for granted in the year 2023, I already brought one up, third-party grading. We also have online e-commerce. We can look at real-time pricing data on eBay, on Heritage Auctions, on Morphe's Auctions, on Christie's, on Sotheby's, pretty much in real time. All of these advancements that really changed the antiques and collectibles trade from a more mundane, fragmented market. That's really where we were just 50 to 60 years ago, looking at the antiques and collectibles trade. Don't get me wrong, people have been collecting antiques and collectibles for thousands of years. If we go all the way back to ancient times, there were individuals that were collecting things. Collecting is part of the human condition. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody's a collector. A collector is born. They are not made. Most likely, if you are watching this channel right now, you probably have what is known as the collecting bug. I like to call it the collecting gene. This is something inside you that causes you to go out, seek out these artifacts, preserve them, collect them, keep them in pristine condition, and potentially, since you are watching a collectibles finance channel, invest in these items, whether it be over the short term or over the long term. Because I don't want to get morbid in this video, but most of the items you collect will most likely outlive you, meaning somebody else is going to become the owner and custodian of these items when you pass on. Now, unless if you collect something crazy. I mean, if you're one of these idiots out here that pays $25,000 for a potato chip that is shaped like Moses, that's on you. I would never, ever advise anybody to pay $25,000 for a potato chip shaped like anything. But if that's one of you individuals out there, hey, you do you. We all got to be unique in our own ways. If you have more money than brains, you go and you pay $25,000 for that crazy potato chip on eBay that's shaped like Moses. Now, with that being said, going back to my primary points, most of the advancements that we are seeing right now in the antiques and collectibles trade came to fruition within the last 50 to 60 years. If we look and we go all the way back to when the first yearly price guide was published in the antiques and collectibles trade, that would have been the 1960s. After that, we kind of got to third-party grading in the 1980s. That was a major advancement. Then, of course, in the 1990s, the most major advancement that hit the antiques and collectibles trade was the internet. the advent of auction web, which is what eBay was called before it became eBay in 1996. All of these advancements had a profound impact on the antiques and collectibles trade in one way or another. People, obviously, that were collectors 100 years ago, back in 1923, they were involved in a very different antiques and collectibles trade than what we see today in the year 2023. You have the rise of investors that are coming into these markets, that are changing these markets for better or worse in new and exciting ways. You have the rise of speculators. You have the rise of online dealers. Because remember now, with the advent of the internet, people can flock to the internet, they can create a website, and they don't have the expenses that a traditional antique dealer who opens up a brick and mortar retail shop would. Because now they can put their wares on the internet and they can sell to clients all over the world. All these advancements have affected the antiques and collectibles trade dramatically to get it to where we are in the year 2023 with the run-up in prices that we saw during the pandemic, with governments doling out free money to their citizens, all the way to the crash, to what happened when the market pulled back, to what happened when that free money was no longer flowing anymore and prices started receding. Certain markets crashed more than others. If you're somebody that collects pop culture collectibles, I myself also happen to collect and invest in pop culture collectibles, among other things. I feel bad for you in certain cases if you didn't think that that was a possibility. Because a lot of these markets, if you look even at graded comic books, if you look at collectible card games, if you look at even video games, a lot of those markets have pulled back substantially. Now, the video game market, I'm not going to comment too much in this video because we all know what happened there. It was allegedly manipulated. That's another story all its own. But just looking at how all of this played out, I'm here to tell you that the only constant in the antiques and collectibles trade is change. And this is something that you got to understand if you're going to attempt to invest in these markets. This is how all this comes full circle, where we always end up talking about investing, where we always talk about speculation, financial involvement, financial investment in a lot of these markets. See, the next big thing that's going to take the antiques and collectibles trade by storm, spoiler alert here, I'm going to spoil it for you, is AI, artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence has the power to literally do what the internet did to the antiques and collectibles trade back in the 1990s. Artificial intelligence, whether we like it or not, is the future. And artificial intelligence, in my opinion, is going to affect the antiques and collectibles trade in a variety of different ways, but I can pretty much right now pinpoint at least 4 ways that the antiques and collectibles trade is going to be affected by this technological achievement. And I know AI is very controversial. I'm sure if you're my age, again, I'm 46 years of age, a couple of months I'll be 47. I grew up watching Terminator, Terminator 2, Skynet, advancement of AI. It can be a little bit scary as well. But I'm going to briefly go over the 4 ways that I think AI is going to affect the antiques and collectibles trade going forward, and why we really have to come to the understanding that these markets are, again, going to evolve and they're going to change over the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 50, 100,000 years. So the first advancement that AI is going to bring out is we're going to have a better handle on authenticating a lot of these items, whether they're on the collectible side of the trade or whether they're on the hardcore antiques side of the trade. Now, obviously, AI would be a massive advancement on the antique side of the trade. Could you just imagine if you could look at a piece of antique furniture or a piece of antique glass or even artwork or a historical item and let a computer algorithm or program that can learn from itself analyze that particular piece and confirm whether it's real or not? Do you have any idea how much confidence that would bring into a lot of these markets. Even if you had like a piece of antique furniture and a computer, it would be scanned into a computer, and a computer would be able to literally look at every piece that makes up that piece of antique furniture, every part on it, and determine if it's authentic, if it's actually a real screw, if the wood wasn't altered or aged. Do you have any idea how much money would be flowing into that market just as a result of that advancement? People would no longer feel scared to invest in a lot of these treasures from the past. Antique furniture would experience a revival. There'd be a lot of people going, you know what? I am going to plunk down 30 grand for that Chippendale chair, because now I know with a 99% authenticity that it is pretty much 100% real. That would really change the dynamic for that market. Another advancement where AI would really do a blessing in these markets is pricing. You know, right now we have all this information floating out there: heritage auctions, eBay, Sotheby's, Christie's, the small auction company that I don't even remember the name of. All that pricing information is just floating out there. If an algorithm or a computer could capture all of it, not only the good high-profile sales, not only the stuff from certain well-known dealers, but could you imagine if we could take all that pricing information and just put it in one area where everybody, whether they have to pay a subscription for it or not, has access to that information at any given time? And I know that some of you are going to say, Sean, they already do that. If you look at the sites that do that, they do not cover every facet of the market. They do not cover every single auction house, every sale. There is omitted details there. Even your favorite paid subscription site, I'm not going to name any for this reason in this particular video, omits sales data, whether it's on purpose or whether it's by accident. I assure you, that is something where if AI gets involved and there's no room for human error or human interpretation, do you have any idea how beautiful that pricing data would be, assuming you could stomach it all? Because let's be realistic. If we're pulling from every single site out there, from every auction site, every e-commerce site, that's going to be a lot of data. But it's really going to help in a lot of this high-end stuff, whether it's artwork, whether it's a copy of Action Comics 1, whether it's a rare coin. That type of advancement is much needed in these markets because, in my opinion, even in the year 2023, the antiques and collectibles trade is still fragmented. It's not working as a whole unit. You still have to have somebody like me that can go in and analyze these markets and give individuals my thoughts. I am a consultant in the antiques and collectibles trade, just in case you're not aware of that. That's what I do. A third advancement that really is going to help a lot of these markets, and unfortunately, this is going to be the one that's going to cost the Timmies, Kimmies, and Poindexters the most. AI is going to allow people and auction houses to write tailored auction descriptions and listings that appeal to certain buyers more than others. So if you're somebody that is emotionally attached to pop culture collectibles, you may notice certain auction company descriptions of items appeal to you more, where they're able to pretty much figuratively reach into your brain and pretty much stimulate you to bid up some of these particular items simply because they worded the auction description in a certain way. This we're already seeing. I know eBay now has a feature where AI can write descriptions. I think AI can also write auction titles if you let it. And we're already seeing this play out a little bit, where some of these descriptions, some of them are really good. I must admit, I'm kind of impressed by this technology. The fourth way that I see AI really transforming the antiques and collectibles trade going forward is through conservation and restoration efforts. Now, there is a difference between conservation and restoration. I want to make that very clear. Restoration pretty much attempts to return an item back to its original condition. Conservation attempts to preserve the item in question in its current condition. But AI can really be a boom for this. Could you imagine if you have a piece of high-profile art and let's just assume that that art is damaged. And the AI algorithm goes in and analyzes the paints that the artist used to put together that piece. So if they do need to go in and attempt to conserve that particular painting, they know exactly what type of paint to use to make it look as it did back in the day, if they're going to attempt to restore it or conserve it. This would be a major development for AI, to the point where it would actually mitigate the use of certain art experts, which kind of scares me in a way, because let's be realistic. If you can do that with a computer algorithm, some of those particular individuals may be out of a job. So this is really going to revolutionize even people who are employed by auction houses, people who are employed by museums, galleries, and the like. We may get to a point even where reserved investments is nothing more than a computer-generated AI algorithm. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts. Just know, guys, that we are not at the pinnacle peak of the antiques and collectibles trade as of yet. What's coming is even more exciting than what's already been achieved. Thank you for watching, and have a great night.